Hello and welcome back to live coverage of the inaugural $5,000 Modern Open here in Caldwell, Ohio, brought to you by Apex Gaming MTG. I'm Tandy, aka Todd Anderson, joined by Ross Merriam, aka Ross Hunnits. Are you still Ross Hunnits?
Yeah.
Okay. We have 6 rounds in the books for you, and we got one more round of Swiss before we cut to a top 8. We will be bringing you those elimination matches right after this round is finished, so stick around until the end if you want to see who takes the biggest share of the $5,000 prize purse. Ross, why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown about the first match we're going to be watching? All the matches that we're looking at right now are going to be in contention for top 8.
Yeah, so we're going to be starting with our table 4 matches. These are 2 X1s. Unfortunately, didn't have good enough tiebreakers to draw, one of which is Jesse Clevenger, who we watched last round on 4-color Omnath, playing against one of the mainstays of the Apex gaming circuit, that is Amin Abadi, playing Azorius Hammer.
Nice. Not usually a hammer guy, right?
Yeah, the Abadi's usually, Amin and his twin brother Gabe, Gabe not here today, usually playing, very inventive decks, a lot of times playing Asmo, but instead just going for the consistency of a very powerful hammer deck, and it's working out.
A little bit of bonking?
Yeah.
Bonks?
I think it's been the best performing deck of the tournament, so good choice for Amin here, and we'll see if it can carry him to the top 8, but I think a tough matchup here against Clevenger. Bevy of cheap disruption and solitudes, really going to be hard to power through, especially without the Lura's companion that these decks used to have for these sort of long grindy matchups.
Now, Prismatic Ending, I think, is going to be one of the more important cards in the matchup. Being able to knock out Sigarda's Aid for just 1 mana, I think, is going to effectively take the wind out of the Hammer player's sails, and it'll just be up to whether or not that interaction comes up. I am thinking whoever's on the play has a significant advantage. What do you think?
I think Clevenger just has an advantage player draw. I think the power of Solitude.
Solitude is an incredible Magic card, and we've seen it do some really dirty stuff all day today. So let's go ahead and head down to the match as we watch these 2 players fight it out for their top 8 berth. The winner of this match will be cashing their ticket to the elimination rounds and looking for a large sum of money in this 5K open.
Body on the play, that is definitely going to help.
Yeah, pretty explosive start here. Turn 1 Giver of Runes and Ornithopter. So getting ready to start pounding away with those creatures.
Now, if this is followed up by turn 2, land number 2, Sigarda's Aid Hammer, this is an excellent start.
Yeah. All right, so going back Amin Abadi's way, just a Flooded Strand for Clevenger. Looking to fetch a Tryon probably. Here's a turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic. No spell snares for Jesse. This is going to resolve.
With an Inkmoth Nexus, protected by the Giver of Runes, we could see a pretty fast kill.
Well, Giver of Runes in general, very scary here.
Okay.
And with the Giver of Runes essentially unlocked, it's going to take essentially 2 removal spells from Jesse to clear this package. Otherwise, the Cauldron Complete threatening to come down next turn. We'll see if he has an answer here. Needs Solitude plus Prismatic Ending or something similar to deal with this threat.
Yeah, the Cauldron Complete being protected by the Giver of Runes is really big in this matchup. Otherwise, Clevenger has a lot of ways to clear away that germ. Prismatic Ending and Solitude do the job. But Giver of Runes stops at both of those and makes it a much more attractive target for the Stoneforge Mystic.
I love that so many of the creatures from the Hammer decks have 2 toughness these days. That insulates them quite a bit from the turn 2 Ren and 6 play, which is often so backbreaking for creature-based decks.
Yeah, that second point of toughness on Ornithopter especially has been big for many, many years, in many formats.
All right, here is an Esper Sentinel from Amin Abadi after the 3rd land as a Horizon Canopy. This is going to put even more pressure on Jesse. If he chooses to interact, it's going to be taxed either by a card or by mana. Here is Cauldron Complete, cheated in off the Stoneforge Mystic. Does Jesse have an answer?
I see a Ren and 6 in Clevenger's hand, and he must have a reason for not wanting to have played that last turn. So I expect some form of interaction here, just not sure what it's going to be.
All right, we're going to be fetching here. Perhaps it's tapped land plus Leyline Binding, but no black, so I don't think that that's going to be it. Maybe just taking a chunk of damage. All right, so Leyline Binding. Is there? I don't believe that there's black mana on Jesse's side, so this should be a 2 mana Leyline Binding instead of a 1, unless that's a Zagoth Triumph. I thought it was a Ketria.
Wouldn't be surprised if it's just Zagoth.
I'm going to go check. You keep talking.
Well, Clevenger going to untap. That's a Solitude drawn, which is quite solid. Just any sort of free spell here to catch back up is going to be important. I also see a Beseiju hanging out over there. If we get that Beseiju going with the Renin 6, that could also be good, but that's going to require a lot of mana to get going. I'm not sure if Jesse's going to have time to set that one up.
All right, no harm, no foul. That wasn't the Goth Triumph. Impossible to tell, really.
I feel like we see more of these weird triumphs than the regular printings of them, and I don't like it.
Well, the packs these days are just full of cool stuff, man. People just get to choose whichever one they like best, so...
Coolness is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, so is this Teferi.
And I am the beholder.
Azorius Sentinel just drawing multiple cards here. Teferi Time Raveler going to come down and bounce. Giver of Runes going to turn off Summoning Sickness.
Okay, but, very far from out of the woods here. We can attack down that Teferi pretty easily. The body has plenty of mana to work with. Still has the Esper Sentinel, and now, some extra cards fueled with it.
Yeah, I mean, Jesse choosing to just give Amin 2 cards because otherwise the damage is already done, right?
Yeah, definitely. And just gonna read. Ooh.
All right, 1 at Teferi and then getting in some damage. Nothing to do with the mana otherwise, I suppose.
Not that exciting to spend 2 mana to deal 1 damage effectively, as opposed to deploying more things onto the battlefield, but maybe a body's hand is full of more reactive cards.
Well, you also have to understand that these players don't have open deck lists, right? There's a chance, the fetching of the island could signify to Amin that there's potential for Supreme Verdict or something similar on the other side. With the Ketra Triumph, all it takes is a fetch Sacred Foundry, Temple Garden, or other white-based land, and then all your creatures are gone.
I think I saw a Blacksmith skill in a body's hand, so I think that's what's being left up with that Horizon Canopy. Notably, a body staying with the, old standard of Blacksmith skill, not moving on to Surge of Salvation that we've seen some other hammer lists employ in this tournament.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with just the card being relatively new. People don't always get a chance to test with new cards before these events. It's only been out for a week and a half. It's not even clear that it's better than Blacksmith skill, if you ask me. It's just new and different. All right, here is a 1 mana Leyline Binding, and we're going to pay the 1 for the Esper Sentinel. What are we going to go after? We're going to kill the Giver of Runes. We're going to go for a Blacksmith skill. Does Jesse have a response?
Oof.
Looks like his hand is Hallowed Moonlight, Renin 6, maybe a Solitude, Beseiju, and a second Renin 6, okay? Blacksmith skill with the protection here.
On the draw in this matchup, the Renin 6s have looked unimpressive for probably the first time all day for Jesse Clevenger, and for a lot of these decks that are employing Renin 6. But that's one of the strengths of the Hammer deck. It puts you under so much early pressure that it can stop Renin 6 before it even gets going, even though it's only a 2 mana card.
All right, so Leyline Binding comes down, targets the Giver of Runes. In response, we have a Blacksmith skill, and in response to that, we have a Pitch Solitude to eat it. So Leyline Binding no longer has a target, but Back of Body's Way has a grip full thanks to the Esper Sentinel and that Urza Saga primed and ready to start making tokens.
There's another Inkmoth Nexus, so, normally you'd think 5 lands out for the Hammer player, they might be a little bit flooded, but 4 of them are utility lands, so the body not worried about having extra mana, has plenty of things to do with it. In fact, it's probably going to help him pressure Jesse Clevenger even more than he otherwise would be able to.
I actually really like not popping the Horizon Canopy last turn. Urza Saga is extremely, extremely taxing on your mana, and if you chose to just send one of the creatures at the Teferi, a Solitude can potentially blow that up. And the Inkmoth Nexus is such low value in the spot that you're fine with that getting hit with a Solitude against a 1 mana Teferi. But here we have end of turn fetch for Jesse Clevenger. Let's see if he wants to do this Beseiju. Gonna blow up the Urza Saga, maybe? Blow up an Inkmoth Nexus. Okay.
Interesting. I would think the Saga is the more threatening card, but Clevenger disagrees.
Well, maybe he's just playing to one specific out in the deck, and the Inkmoth Nexuses lead to some bad scenarios. Maybe trying to bait Amin into main phasing the token generation to play into some sort of sorcerer speed removal or activation. But we're just going to pop the Horizon Canopy with the floating mana and still have mana open for the Urza Saga. What do you do here if you're Jesse? How do you get out of this?
I'd probably just pack it up and go to game 2.
An Omnath player packing it up prematurely?
The nail in the coffin is that gorgeous Urza Saga Plains from Amida Body. Great choice in basic land. Once they find that off the Boseiju, you're too far behind.
All right, Jesse here looking to deploy Renin 6 and take out the Esper Sentinel. We'll need to pay 1 in order to prevent the card draw, but going to be facing down that Urza Saga token. Very scary.
Well, Ren will do with the Esper Sentinel, so that's finally that annoyance is out of the way. But yet, at this point, Clevenger's is way down on resources, and we saw against Yawgmoth last round, he had a lot more time to draw out of the spot when he used a lot of his resources to stop the early attacks. Against the body, he's not going to have that time, so he needs to start taking control of this game, and I'm not even sure Omnath, the card that he used last round to take control of the game, is going to be enough in the face of the powerful Urza Saga.
All right, back body's way. Saga is going to go to chapter 3. We're going to make a token in response. Then we're going to go fetching, looking for a 1-mana artifact. That's a hammer. Do we have a way to equip it? That's the question.
Time to go ham. We need White Source Pure Steel.
All right, and we have it. Does Jesse have the answer? We pack it in.
Just another Renin 6 in hand for Clevenger, so nothing going, and the hammer is enough to close game 1.
And Body taking game number 1, and as they're shuffling up and sideboarding, Ross is going to take a look at their sideboards and let you know what's going to be happening there. But before we do that, just want to shout out our sponsors here: Ultimate Guard, G Fuel Energy Formula, and Wings, etc. We appreciate y'all sponsoring the Apex Gaming Invitational Series. Yeah. All right, Ross, what you got?
Okay, looking at a body sideboard first, I see 3 March of Otherworldly Light, 3 Sanctifier Invec, 2 Lavinia Azorius Renegade, 2 Spell Pierce, 1 Path Exile, 1 Pith and Needle, 1 Blacksmith Skill, 1 Relic of Progenitus, and 1 Teferi Time Raveler. I gotta say, I like Blacksmith Skill in this matchup. There's a lot of spot removal on the other side. It's a great tempo play. I think you might need the Path Exile as an answer to Omnath.
That's a tough one, though.
I also really like this Teferi. There's not a ton to bounce in the opposing deck, but I think just stopping them from interacting on your turn ends up being really important. Not a big fan of the other creatures. There's plenty of answers to Sanctifier Invec. I'm not sure there's anything you want to march in the other deck, but we'll take a look at the other sideboard. Really just not a ton to bring in, but that's to be expected in a deck like a Bodies that is very proactive.
Yeah, the pressure that the hammer deck puts on the opponent just constricts the raw amount of time in a game, and your goal as the Omnath player is just elongate it as much as possible so that your late game spells come online.
Okay, Clevenger sideboard. We have the Kahira Companion. 2 copies of Endurance to supplement the 2 in the main, 2 March of Otherworldly Light, 2 Dovin's Veto, 2 Dress Down, 2 Hallowed Moonlight, 1 Mystical Dispute, 1 Supreme Verdict, and 2 copies of an oldie but a goodie, Stony Silence.
Oh, Stony Silence is a nice one. It doesn't stop Sigarda's Day, though, which is a little annoying, but it does shut down essentially the other half of the deck, which is Pure Steel Paladin. It just makes the equip cost reduced to 0, but if the Stony Silence is in play, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, Stony Silence is not a slam dunk like it used to be against Affinity. I still like it. I like the Supreme Verdict, really like the Dress Downs, and I like the Marches.
All right, well, that's Ross's take on what's going to be coming in here from both players as they shuffle up here for game number 2. Remember, this is round number 7 of the Swiss. The last round of Swiss is we're looking for the last couple members of the top 8. We have 6 confirmed drawn in, and 2 of these 3 matches, the winner is going to make it into the elimination rounds and be fighting for the top prize. There is $5,000 up for grabs for these players in our inaugural 5K Modern Open from Apex Gaming. This is kicking off the Apex Gaming Invitational Series Season 3. This event is not technically part of it, but we did announce the Season 3 starting, well, I guess tomorrow, right? But looking forward to the Invitational in October 20th through 22nd. That weekend, we will be having the 10K plus Invitational. And I say 10K plus because the more stores that we have involved, the more prizes that we can give away. And we're looking to juice that a bit. So if you're interested in joining the Apex Gaming Invitational Series as a Satellite Store would be more than happy to have you. Go to apexgaming.gg for more information. You can also find links to all sorts of events that we have scheduled there, and we'll be updating that frequently.
Okay, players have shuffled. We are ready for game 2. Jesse Clevenger on your left, going to be on the play here in this matchup between 4-color Omnath Control and Azorius Hammer.
All right.
Now, being on the play, turn 2 Ren and 6, I think, isn't going to be as ineffectual as we saw in game 1. So definitely still something Jesse is looking for.
I think the important thing is that the raw number of creatures in a body's deck that has 1 toughness is pretty low. It's basically just Esper Sentinel, I think. Other than like Inkmoth Nexus, but that's never going to be at danger.
Never going to be a creature while you can activate a Planeswalker.
All right, we're underway. Jesse Clevenger on the play, leads with Misty Rainforest. Amina Bodies turn 1, potentially more explosive. Let's see what the play is. There's a fetch.
Going to be looking for
Shadow Spear. Bluff.
Not a great opening play. Would much rather see something like Sigarda's Aid, even Esper Sentinel that is technically vulnerable to Ren and 6. You would draw a card if they rend it, so that could still be reasonable. An Ornithopter would be nice to potentially threaten a turn 2 equip, but Shadow Spear, not something Clevenger is going to be worried about for the time being, and that's going to give him time to potentially deploy something like a Ren and 6 and start generating card advantage of his own, which is what he failed to do in game 1.
Yeah, we saw him draw a bunch of like 1-for-1 interaction, but a body was able to spray the board with these cheap creatures. The Esper Sentinel was able to draw multiple cards and then later tax Jesse's mana. So really it was a story of a body just overwhelming Jesse in the early turns and Jesse essentially trading card advantage in return for tempo advantage so he could actually interact and was just put out to pasture. Here is a removal of the Shadow Spear via Prismatic Ending, and we're back at Body's way.
Yeah, that feels a lot like you've got a 1-drop, I've got a removal that's good against 1-drops, might as well do it now.
Yeah, but taking away the artifact does, shrink Metalcraft a bit for a Pure Steel Paladin later on, and the trample can sometimes pop over your stuff, so.
Yeah. We'll see if Clevenger ends up getting paid off for that, and the mana efficiency in the early turns is important, or does he end up regretting it, say, man, I would have rather used that on a juicier target later on, say like this Colossus Hammer.
Yeah, but the Colossus Hammer is oftentimes unable to be hit in a relevant spot by a Prismatic Ending just because you need Teferi Plus. I know there's other ways to answer it, but, use your mana while you can, especially if your hand is full of interaction, which I guess Jesse's is if you're going to burn a Prismatic Ending on something as innocuous as a Shadow Spear on turn 2.
Could also have been motivated by Jesse's desire to fetch another Triumph, get the domain online. That could set up the rest of his hand better.
All right, back Jesse's way. Turn number 3. What you got for me, Big Papa?
Looks like a basic Plains.
Well, basic Plains means no Archmage's Charm, but it does mean a potential Teferi Time Raveler. But it looks like we're going to have a 2-mana spell. That's a 2-mana Prismatic Ending and taking care of the Stoneforge Mystic, but it leaves that Colossus Hammer behind in a body's hand.
I'm seeing a counter spell, and I'm seeing an Endurance in Clevenger's hand. Also a Steam Vents. There's 1 unknown, so not great leftovers here. And we'll see what Amin can muster.
That's a pretty good one. Pure Steel Paladin, followed by Colossus Hammer. Does Clevenger want to respond? Could do March Pitch, but we're going to get to draw a card off the Pure Steel. Back Clevenger's way.
It's a 2-for-1 either way. Not really a good option there. That looks like a dress down drawn off the top.
All right, good main phase of March just to take care of the Pure Steel Paladin. Has Counterspell at the ready.
Also main phase March on the Hammer.
Good. I don't think that really does enough. I think the Pure Steel Paladin is very scary.
There's not a lot of equipment, total equipment in the deck. It's usually the 1 Calder Complete, the 1 Shadow Spear, the Hammers. A body does have a 1 of Nettle Cyst as well. That's about it.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about Pure Steel Paladin sort of going off the way it can sometimes do in other decks that have featured it over the years.
Oh, do you remember the Retract deck, Ross? Pure Steel Paladin with a bunch of 0-mana equipment, and then you retract and bounce them all?
Equipment Cheerios.
It was so much fun. All right, Body's on the offensive here. Let's see if he can assemble an attack squadron to pressure Jesse. Jesse has Counterspell. Accidentally flashes another Pure Steel Paladin. Now Jesse not really giving a crap about the one in play, huh?
I think they called that deck Honey Nut Cheerios because all the Cheerios were brown.
I thought it was because they really liked cereal.
Well, cereal, it's been proven over the years that cereal gives the best magic deck moves.
Yeah, I agree. Lucky Charms. I couldn't even tell you what the deck Lucky Charms is.
Fruity Pebbles, Cocoa Pebbles.
They don't really give a good description of what's going
Yeah.
on, though. That's the problem.
Maybe we go even more general. Breakfast is a good name. Full English Breakfast was a great name. So,
Well, here's a Stoneforge Mystic from a body. Jesse, choosing to deal with this in a couple different ways. Can cast Counterspell, can use Dress Down to shrink it. Looks like he's going to just straight up Counterspell it to get it out of here.
good card to counter spell since it generates value when it enters.
And if a body has another hammer, it can deploy that here and draw a card. As Inkmoth Nexus as the follow-up. Going to animate, it seems like, both of them. So he can equip hammer to the Pure Steel Paladin. But Jesse, with a March at the ready, going to exile the hammer.
So, Crisis averted.
Yeah, heads up play by me and seeing that Metalcraft line, too. That was a lot of pressure potential.
Looks like another prismatic ending drawn. So I think we got Endurance, Dress Down, prismatic ending.
Okay.
See if Clevenger wants to use a prismatic ending on this paladin. And he does.
Okay, and now we can use Dress Down to stop the next Stoneforge Mystic and draw a card. And it looks like Jesse has kind of weathered the storm. We'll see if Amin can assemble a second attack force.
Amin has plenty more cards in hand, though, so he's got to feel okay about his spot as well. If both players get whittled down to nothing, he's got a couple extra cards and these Inkmoth Nexuses. It might not look like much, but when your opponent has nothing, having something means you have everything.
Yeah, I don't think Jesse's really afraid of the Inkmoths too much, though, just because we know about the Endurance. It can't come down this turn, but it can ambush them later.
Yeah, the Endurance could...
Cigar is aid. That's terrifying if you're Jesse. Okay.
Does a body have the other hammer? I
Well,
kind of feel like he does.
just going to swing in for 2 poison. Okay, well, that's a big dub for Jesse if I ever seen one. Okay, going back Jesse's way, we know about the Endurance. We know about Dress Down. The 5th mana source allows him to deploy both if he should want. Back of Body's way.
And now we might be getting a few too many lands for a body here. Where are these Urza Sagas?
Yeah, no
that's the land
kidding.
you want.
Dress Down, a nice answer to the Saga tokens for sure, but a body just kind of wants a land that does something instead of a fetch land that gets planes.
Hey, they're good planes, Todd.
They are good planes.
We're not
but
poo-pooing the planes.
you don't want too many of them.
I would take about 20 of them.
All right. Here is Pure Steel Paladin, number 2. Does Jesse want to respond? Probably not.
The old Glory Seeker.
Animate Inkmoth Nexus.
Body with the full stare down.
All right, gonna jam it on in. You have to imagine Jesse's gonna go for the Endurance here. Starting with a fetch. Maybe he wants to make sure he has Dress Down ready.
Yeah, maybe. You got to go for the Endurance, though. Because if you think just Dress Down is going to beat a hammer, it won't. They can activate the Inkmoth after the Dress Down enters.
Right.
That's when the layers will take over.
Okay, well, here comes the Endurance. Who do you want to target? Maybe Self, maybe no one? Self is a lot of removal going back in. If we're going to do that, I might have wanted to fetch after the Endurance came onto the table.
Not just to take a land out of your library that you don't want to draw, but also to leave a fetch land in your graveyard in case you draw a Ren and 6.
All right, does a body have the hammer? He does. It's going to come down. The Dress Down is going to enter play, but...
So that's going to stop the draw card off Pure Steel.
Yes, it does. But it doesn't stop the Sigarda's Aid, and so now we're going to attach,
Yeah. So
and then Endurance down.
lose the Endurance, but then the hammer will unattach at the end step. Now
Out
we
of?
can find an answer to the Pure Steel.
All right. Now, we do have the ability to equip next turn, right? We have 2 Inkmoth Nexus can be fired up, and then the Colossus Hammer can be equipped for free. So Jesse really needs a removal spell right now, or this is lights out.
You found a Solitude, so I think the plan is to main phase it. Maybe you respond to an Inkmoth activation, but you're going to have to Solitude this Pure Steel Paladin.
Yeah, I kind of like main phasing it so you don't randomly get tricked. You also want to not give Amin the chance to draw blacksmith skill.
Yeah, you're not going to beat a lot of things. There's some things that you can't beat. I like main phasing as well.
All right, well, drop return.
Third Inkmoth Mantis. That is all three of them.
Okay, so now he says with this on the stack, one card in hand, gonna go for the Solitude. Cigar to Aid.
Yeah. By waiting until this point, we just let a body see an extra card.
Yeah. Okay, so he's gonna hit the Pure Still.
Well, no punish, so body will go to 17, and now we're sort of in a. Oh wow!
Okay.
Well, that one you just couldn't beat.
Yeah. All right, and then you can equip, and then you can re-give it flying, and that's all she wrote. Amina Body cashes his ticket into the top 8 here at the inaugural $5,000 Modern Open at Apex Gaming's home store in Caldwell, Ohio. Congrats to him, but that's not all the magic we have for this round.